Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Own the Moment podcast. My name is TJ Lasig. I'm your host here at OTM, and there's been a lot going on in the world of NFL all day these past 2 weeks. It's no secret that the all day market, the values are down bad to start the season here. So I took it over to X, formerly known as Twitter, to gather some feedback from the community and just try to understand what's going on here. What are the problems that we're seeing? Why do we think this is happening? If you were on the NFL all day team, what would you do from here to help resolve? And through this forum, I received a ton of just awesome feedback from everyone in the community, had some great back and forth conversations, and not just on the X platform, talking with people in Discord, talking with people in the NFL All Day OGs Facebook group. And it was quite therapeutic in a way. I think it was a really, again, great discussion. And I think something that should become more of the norm here in terms of having these forums for the conversation to take place. And, that's something that I personally intend to play a part in going forward. So if you're not already, make sure you're giving me a follow over on X. My handle is at TJL5124DFS. Again, at TJL5124DFS. And so I took in a bunch of feedback. I then summarized all of that into a thread that I posted. So you can check out that for all of the details. But I'm also going to summarize the conversation and the thread and the findings and really my key takeaways here on this very podcast. I also, last Tuesday night, joined the All Night podcast. Check those guys out. Had a great, open, honest conversation about the current state of things. Shout out to those guys for having me, and make sure you're following the All Night crew if you are not already. Let's dive on in here. So, high level, in the feedback that I gathered, there were three main themes coming from NFL All Day collectors. Theme number one, supply and demand is misaligned, causing depressed market values. And that's, certainly the biggest, I would say, in terms of overall impact. Number two, gamification, specifically playbook, has not been engaging. And then number three, the community is unhappy with the lack of communication coming from the NFL All Day team. So supply and demand, gamification / playbook, and lack of communication. I broke down each of these themes in depth within the thread, but also going to go ahead and summarize them here on this podcast. And we're going to start with that first theme, which is supply and demand. Really, sitting at the core of everything we have going on here with NFL All Day is nothing more than a classic case of economics, right? Supply and demand. The contention is that there is too much supply out there for the existing user base. The demand does not match the supply that exists. And what this is doing, anytime that there is more supply than demand, it's going to inevitably lead to a decrease in prices. That's kind of supply and demand economics 101, if you will. And frankly, this is not just something that we've seen in the short term here with NFL All Day, but we've seen it through the kind of entirety of the existence of these Dapper sports products and many other markets as well, right? You could argue that a lot of NFTs has moved into this situation where there's all the supply and not enough demand. We're obviously talking specifically about All Day here, but just want to highlight that this is not a one-off issue. It's something that does exist more broadly as well. And this is the collector's contention, right? The collector's contention is that supply and demand is out of whack. But what we're seeing happen on the other hand is packs continue to sell out. Thus far this season, NFL All Day has sold out all three of their pack drops. That's 25,000 packs sold, bringing in $3.6 million in revenue and adding 108,000 moments to the ecosystem. So, yeah, on one hand, you can say that the demand is not matching the supply, but on the other hand, you could say, well, packs continue to sell out, so doesn't that indicate that the demand is there? And if you're on the team, you certainly can look at that and say, well, hey, we're selling out packs every time. Why would we sell less if we know that we can sell more? And I think this really sits at the core of all the issues. And I think the problem is that this demand that we're talking about is kind of fake, right? And I think, and I talk about this in the thread, but I think there's kind of this perceived demand versus the actual demand, right? And this perceived demand can be found in the fact that packs are selling out and selling out every single time. But to me, when I think about the actual demand that we should be talking about here, it really should be more about the total money and dollars that is invested in the ecosystem. So, not just looking at demand for an individual one-off pack drop, but looking at demand for the entire platform, which includes the pack drops that are happening now, but also includes the secondary marketplace and the activity that we are seeing there. And even more so, the amount of money that is actually getting deposited and added into this Dapper Sports and NFL All Day ecosystem. And this is where we get into this kind of other element where collectors, from what I am seeing and from what other people also voiced in their feedback, but we've got a bunch of collectors that are really treating these pack drops like a lottery, right? They're lining up, hoping to hit big, but for the sake of what, right? They're just hoping to hit big so that they can then turn around and sell that moment in the marketplace to make a very short-term profit. Again, that's just my take. People want to pull, for the most part, I'm sure there's exceptions, but for the most part, people want to pull a quote unquote high value moment in a pack just so that they can sell it and immediately make a profit. They're not wanting to pull that moment because they really want to own it and want to hold it in their collection. And this creates a really kind of dangerous cycle because essentially what happens is, first off, the same old core user base prepares for a pack drop by selling moments in the marketplace, right? They go out, they sell moments from their existing collection so that they can get the liquidity to then go ahead and buy packs. Then they line up in the queue and they play the pack drop lottery. And then number three, they sell off whatever they receive in those packs. And this really creates an unsustainable cycle, especially in a world where we are lacking any kind of new user growth. Because what's happening is packs are selling out without any or very minimal new money being added into the ecosystem. So when we are redefining demand as the money in the ecosystem, we actually do see a mismatch in supply and demand here because the supply is increasing. More packs and more moments are being added to the ecosystem. Supply goes up, but the actual demand in terms of the dollars existing in the ecosystem for these moments is remaining unchanged. So we do have supply increasing while demand does not increase, which, of course, again, by essentially the laws of economics, is going to result in prices going down. And that's exactly what we have seen happen over and over, not just in NFL All Day, but we see it in Top Shot. We see it in multiple places across this industry. And it's pretty clear at this point that it's just not sustainable for any kind of long-term healthy economy. Now, it's extremely tricky and difficult problem. Don't get me wrong. And I do not have the silver bullet answer. I wish that I did. But yeah, I do fear that the platform is going to continue to see sustainability issues if we don't have one of two things happen. Either number one, a decrease in mint counts, a decrease in the number of pack drops, Maybe even a decrease in pack prices would help here, but I think it's more so about the actual number of supply, decreasing mint drops, decreasing number of pack drops, in which case the team essentially has to accept a short-term drop in revenue, which is a difficult thing to do as a business, right? When you know that you have the opportunity to make $3.6 million and you are instead going to say, you know what, I am choosing to only make $2 million, that's a tough sell when you're a business. So I don't know that that's going to happen. Obviously, that's what collectors want to happen, right? Collectors just want to say, well, just do less pack drops. But it's not that simple, right? You do less pack drops, now you have no money coming in. And I'll probably dive into all of that further another time because there's lots of, in my opinion, complexity that comes into all of that. But decreasing the number of pack drops that are happening, I just don't know that we're going to see that. I don't know that I would even do that if I was in Dapper, but I do think that it needs to happen in order for this to sustain long term. And then number two would be getting an influx of new users and or new money into the ecosystem, which, it's also kind of hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel on that right now. So that's kind of the supply demand deep dive. Definitely the most important thing that is sitting at the core of these issues. And I think the last thing that I'll say on that is this is not just a math economics problem. To me, this is not something that is solved in a spreadsheet. There's humans involved here. It's a very new type of market. So I think there's a lot more white space kind of thinking that needs to go into this solution versus just thinking that it's let's look at a spreadsheet, let's look at the numbers, let's calculate supply and demand based on the spreadsheet, right? That's not what this is. There's tons of human elements in play here, tons of psychology in play here, and that's what makes it such a complex issue to solve. All right, so moving along, and this is the thing, like, to me, that's the thing that needs to get solved for first, almost before we can solve anything else. But if and when we do get to a reasonable place on the supply demand situation, now we can start talking about engagement and gamification. And this is where theme number 2 from the community comes into play. Theme number 2 was that collectors are currently unhappy with gamification in NFL All Day, specifically unhappy with Playbook. Users are saying that it is difficult, aka expensive, to complete the playbooks, and there's minimal reward for doing so. So essentially, you need to spend a lot of money to get rewards that don't line up to the money that you spent to get the reward. And this is how, from what I gathered in all the feedback, this is how collectors are feeling. Now, this debate of like collectability versus gamification, this has been going on for literally years at this point. I actually even wrote a thread about this 1 year ago today, read through it again. Seemingly everything still holds true. Mike Levy from Floaty chimed in as well over on X. He's been banging the drum on collectability versus gamification for years now. So this is another like difficult problem, tricky balance to strike. But we are seeing progress in this space, right? And we are seeing efforts made in this space. Whether or not people like the playbooks, we do still have them. So we have weekly playbooks going on. And last week, the team also ran a burn challenge, which a good amount of the community seemed to be happy with. So we have efforts going on there. We have free Rumble, right? So at Own the Moment, we've been very fortunate to be able to partner up with Dapper Labs to provide every single week a free Rumble contest where you take your NFL All Day moments, put them together into a Rumble lineup, and then compete against other collectors in a fantasy football style contest. Completely free to enter, where you can win actual real money, Dapper balance. We're 2 weeks into that now. So if you have not already, make sure you're checking out the Rumble game. Find it over at otmnft.com/Rumble. Head on into the lobby. Again, free contest every single week. Make sure you're entering your lineup. number one, you have the chance to win some Dapper balance. Number two, you are helping support the cause by entering. The more engagement that we can show in contests like this, the more likely we are to continue these types of offerings in the future and continue to be able to have the opportunity to offer things like free Rumble. So head on over, make sure you enter now. And again, shout out to Dapper Labs for partnering with us to make that happen. But regardless of this whole collectability versus gamification conversation, I think one thing that is definitely clear, at least to me, is that the platform and the product needs a core value proposition. And I feel like we've never really gotten that, right? Like, what is NFL All Day? What is the game that we're playing here? And why would I want to own NFL All Day moments? And this needs to be like a 1 or 2 sentence answer, right? And it should be an easy answer. 1 or 2 sentences. What is NFL All Day? Why would I want to own NFL All Day moments? It can't be, in my opinion, this 10-minute ramble about the future of fandom and, the 10-year vision. That's great. It's great to have a 10-year vision. It really is. But if you don't get through years 1 through 9, you can't get to the end of a 10-year vision. And right now, I feel like there's maybe this 10-year vision, but there's not even a 10-week vision. So what is NFL All Day? Why would anyone get involved in this project? That needs to have a very clear answer. And until we have a clear answer on that, it's difficult to move forward and even more difficult to add new users into the ecosystem because it's not clear what they are even signing up for. So that's the number 2 theme around gamification, around playbook. And then number 3, the third and final theme that emerged when gathering feedback from the community was lack of communication from the team. So the community is not happy that the NFL All Day team has chosen to remain quiet through this time. And this is one where I can definitely see both sides. As a community member, you want to know what's going on, right? You're invested in this product, in this platform. You want visibility into what the team is thinking, what's coming next, et cetera, et cetera. But I can certainly respect and appreciate and understand the team's decision to stay silent as they work through things behind the scenes. And, timing is certainly everything. I think coming out to say something just to say it probably doesn't make a lot of sense. I agree. But also, eventually, something needs to give. And there probably needs to be some communication. I don't know. I don't know the answer. And it's clear that this has been their strategy, not just in the past 2 weeks through, this somewhat of a turmoil time period, but from the very beginning. We really haven't heard much from the team at all the way through the offseason, all the way through the in-season. Seems like that is a very intentional strategy that they are deploying. So it's possible that we may never hear from them. I think that's very possible at this point. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, I understand both sides there and respect the team's decision to remain quiet and to remain building and, driving up towards their roadmap behind the scenes. And in the meantime, I think it creates a great opportunity for healthy discussion within the community. And, I think we saw that in the past 2 weeks, and I hope that this is something that continues, right? Let's have the tough conversations. Let's put everything on the table. Let's put our heads together and figure out like what can be done to right the ship here. Is there a way where we can make this make sense for everyone, for collectors, for the team, and most importantly, for the long-term sustainability of the platform? And I personally, my commitment is to take part in that conversation and also do whatever I can to create the forum for people to have that conversation. And so you'll be seeing some more from me personally on that front. In summary, 3 main themes coming from NFL All Day collectors. Number 1, supply and demand is simply out of whack. And within that, we have this repeated cycle where collectors are treating pack drops like a lottery, which is in turn creating a lot of these long-term sustainability issues that we are seeing. That's number one, supply and demand. Number two, collectors seeking deeper engagement via gamification, specifically via playbook. And then number three, collectors wanting to hear from the team, wanting to get more communication and more transparency so that we can understand what is going on here. And there we have it. Thanks to everyone in the community for all of the incredible feedback and thoughts and insights. Immensely helpful. Please, please, please keep it coming. And, I'm going to keep doing everything I can on my side to continue diving in here, continue taking in the feedback, trying to decipher my key takeaways, and deliver that back out to the community so that we can further the conversation more and more and get closer and closer to getting this ship headed in the right direction. Thank you for listening. Make sure, if you're not already, you're subscribed to the podcast. If you feel so inclined, I would appreciate it if you leave a 5-star rating and review. And make sure you're giving me a follow over on the X platform at TJL5124DFS. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next time.